Let me ask you something. Really ask you. How long have you been living inside a chapter you never planned to read this long? How many mornings have you woken up already tired, already bracing yourself for another round? How many times have you wondered if this pressure meant something was wrong with you? Listen to me carefully, because this matters. What you're experiencing right now is not a mistake, and it is absolutely not punishment. Hardship is preparation, not punishment. And if you can hear that, not just with your ears, but with your nervous system, this entire experience begins to change, meaning hardship is preparation, not punishment. That idea challenges almost everything the human mind does under pressure. When pain shows up, the first instinct is to personalize it, to assume something has gone wrong, that you've failed, that you're being singled out. But preparation never feels comfortable while it's happening. No athlete wakes up sore and thinks the training session was unfair. They know soreness means adaptation. In the same way, hardship is the training ground of the soul. It strips away illusions, exposes weaknesses, and forces growth that comfort would never demand. When life tightens around you, it's not asking you to suffer meaninglessly. It's asking you to become stronger than you were before. Preparation always precedes responsibility. You don't hand a child the keys to a race car. You don't put untested steel into a bridge. Everything that must carry weight first learns how to withstand stress. Hardship teaches discernment, patience, emotional control, humility, resilience. These qualities cannot be downloaded, borrowed, or skipped. They must be earned through experience. That's why shortcuts feel appealing, but never produce stability. Preparation is slow, inconvenient, often lonely, and deeply misunderstood by people who aren't in it. When hardship shows up repeatedly, it's often because the next season of life demands more capacity than you currently possess, more wisdom, more discipline, more faith, more endurance. If the pressure feels excessive, it's because the future assignment is significant. Small callings don't require intense preparation. Ordinary outcomes don't demand extraordinary refinement. The resistance you face is proportionate to the level you are being shaped for. Punishment weakens. Preparation strengthens. Punishment leaves you diminished. Preparation leaves you expanded. If this season were punishment, you would be losing yourself. Instead, even through the pain, you're becoming more self-aware, more grounded, more selective about what matters. You're learning what drains you and what fuels you. You're learning how to stand without validation. That's not destruction. That's construction. Preparation also removes what can't go with you. Old habits, old dependencies, old identities that were built on approval instead of purpose. Hardship forces honesty. It reveals where you were relying on comfort instead of character, routine instead of conviction. What feels like loss is often pruning. What feels like emptiness is often space being created. Nothing new can enter a life that is already full of what no longer serves it. Preparation doesn't ask for your permission. It arrives when it's needed, not when it's convenient. That's why it often feels unfair in the moment. But fairness is irrelevant to growth. Growth is about alignment, and hardship aligns you with reality, with your limits, with your strengths, with your dependence on something greater than your own control. That alignment becomes the foundation for sustainable success, not fragile winds that collapse under pressure. Pressure is building your strength. Pressure is not the enemy. Weakness is pressure exposes where strength is missing and then invites it to develop. Muscles grow because resistance tears fibers that rebuild stronger. Diamonds form because carbon is subjected to immense pressure over time. Remove the pressure and you don't get strength, you get stagnation. You get comfort. That feels good now and costs you later. The human mind tries to escape pressure, numb it, avoid it, distract from it. But pressure is information. It tells you where to focus. It shows you what needs reinforcement. Emotional pressure builds emotional intelligence. Financial pressure builds discipline and creativity. Relational pressure builds communication and boundaries. Spiritual pressure builds faith and surrender. Each form of pressure targets a specific area of growth. Pressure also clarifies priorities. When everything is easy, everything feels important. When pressure increases, only what truly matters survives. You stop wasting energy on approval, drama, and distractions. You become efficient, focused, intentional. That's strength being forged. Not loud, not flashy, but solid. Strength isn't the absence of fear or fatigue. Strength is the ability to move forward while carrying them. Pressure teaches you how to operate under load. It teaches you to regulate your emotions instead of being ruled by them. It teaches you how to stay present when escape would be easier. That skill alone separates those who endure from those who evolve. Pressure also humbles the ego. It dismantles the illusion of total control. It forces reliance on something deeper than talent or effort. That humility becomes wisdom, and wisdom multiplies strength because it prevents self-sabotage. Many people lose everything, not because they lacked ability, but because they lacked the inner strength to manage success. Pressure builds that inner infrastructure. Strength built under pressure lasts. It doesn't disappear when circumstances change. It becomes part of who you are. You don't unlearn resilience. You don't forget how to stand back up. You don't lose the ability to endure discomfort once you've mastered it. That's why people who have survived pressure walk differently, speak differently, choose differently. Pressure also expands capacity. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable. What once exhausted you becomes routine. You realize you can handle more than you thought. That realization changes how you see future challenges. Fear loses its authority when you have evidence of survival. Pressure gives you that evidence of survival. The goal of pressure is not to crush you, but to condition you. Not to break you, but to prepare you for environments that require strength. If the pressure feels relentless, it's because the environment you're being prepared for is demanding. Strength is being layered quietly, invisibly, beneath the surface. And the most powerful part is this. Pressure doesn't just build strength, it reveals it under pressure. You discover courage you didn't know you had, patience you didn't think you possessed, faith you hadn't fully accessed. You learn that you are not as fragile as your emotions sometimes suggest. You are adaptable, resilient, capable of growth under strain. Pressure forces choice. It asks whether you will shrink or expand, resist or refine, complain or commit. Every moment under pressure is a vote for the person you are becoming. Strength is not built in dramatic moments alone, but in repeated small decisions to keep going, to stay disciplined, to stay open, to stay open, to stay grounded. Even when relief hasn't arrived yet, you are still standing for a reason. Survival is not random. If it were only about talent, intelligence, or luck, many people would have made it this far. But endurance is a different currency. The fact that you're still here means something within you has refused to quit, even when quitting made sense, even when walking away would have been easier. Still standing means you adapted. It means you learned how to breathe underwater, how to function while tired, how to keep moving with unanswered questions. That persistence is evidence of purpose unfolding, not an accident of time. Every season that should have broken you but didn't added a layer of strength you now carry unconsciously. You don't announce it, you don't always feel it, but it shows up in how you handle chaos, how you recover faster, how you don't collapse the way you once would have. Being still standing doesn't mean you were fearless. It means you were willing to face another day, willing to keep going without guarantees, willing to trust that there was meaning beyond what you could currently see. There were moments when you felt like you were barely surviving, when progress felt invisible, and effort felt wasted. But survival itself is progress in seasons meant to drain you. Sometimes the victory is an advancement, it's endurance. Sometimes the win is simply not giving up. Still standing means you pass tests you didn't even know you were taking. Tests of patience, tests of character, tests of faith, tests of restraint. You learned when to fight and when to wait. You learned when silence was strength and when speaking up was necessary. Still standing also means you outgrew versions of yourself that couldn't go any further. Old identities fell away because they were not built for the weight you now carry. You stopped seeking constant reassurance. You stopped needing permission. You stopped explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. That growth didn't happen overnight. It was forged slowly, through repeated disappointments and quiet recalibration. There were times you wanted someone to rescue you, to intervene, to make it easier, but instead, you were taught self-reliance and discernment. You learned how to draw boundaries. You learned how to say no without guilt. You learned how to conserve energy instead of pouring it into places that never returned it. These are not small lessons. These are the skills required to sustain future success. Still standing also means your story isn't finished being written. If the purpose were fulfilled, the season would have ended. Continuation implies assignment. Breath implies responsibility. Presence implies potential. Even exhaustion is not evidence of failure, it's evidence of effort. You didn't quit when you were confused. You didn't quit when you were disappointed. You didn't quit when results were delayed. That consistency under pressure is rare. Delays are developing endurance. Endurance is not built in moments of speed. It's built in moments of waiting. Waiting stretches the nervous system. It trains the mind to remain steady without immediate reward. It teaches you how to hold vision when evidence is absent. Delays force you to sit with discomfort without numbing it, without escaping it, without rushing past it. That capacity becomes invaluable later when outcomes matter more and consequences are greater. A delay reveals what you truly believe. When nothing moves, when doors stay closed, when progress stalls, faith either deepens or dissolves. Endurance is what remains when excitement fades. Anyone can start strong. Very few can stay committed when nothing is happening on the surface. Delays teach you how to keep showing up without applause. They refine motivation. They strip away ego-driven urgency and replace it with grounded patience. Endurance changes how you interpret time. Instead of seeing waiting as wasted, you begin to see it as formative. You notice what's being built internally while nothing seems to be changing externally. Emotional regulation, thought discipline. Perspective, you learn how to manage frustration without letting it dictate your behavior. That skill alone prevents countless self-sabotaging decisions. Delays also protect you from premature outcomes. What arrives too early often collapses. What is rushed often breaks. Endurance ensures you can sustain what you've been asking for. Without it, success becomes a burden rather than a blessing. Waiting teaches stewardship. It teaches you how to carry responsibility without resentment. In delay, you learn rhythm. You learn when to push and when to rest. You learn that productivity isn't constant output but sustainable effort. You learn how to pace yourself for long journeys instead of burning out in short sprints. Endurance is not about speed, it's about staying power. Delays also expose attachment. They show you what you're clinging to too tightly and what you're avoiding letting go of. Endurance develops flexibility. You adjust expectations, you refine goals, you become less rigid and more resilient. That adaptability becomes a competitive advantage in uncertain environments. When delays persist, they also deepen empathy. You become more patient with others because you understand unseen battles. You stop assuming timelines are universal. You stop measuring worth by visible progress. Endurance softens judgment while strengthening resolve. Endurance is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It's built in private moments when you choose consistency over comfort, discipline over distraction, trust over panic. Delays force you to practice those choices repeatedly. Over time, they become instinctive. Difficulty also purifies faith. You stop using it as a bargaining tool and start living it as a foundation. You pray differently, you listen more, you surrender outcomes instead of trying to manage them. Faith becomes less about getting through and more about being shaped in hard seasons. Faith stops being borrowed and becomes personal. It becomes something you've tested, leaned on, and proven. That kind of faith doesn't collapse when circumstances shift. It stabilizes you while they do. You are becoming ready for what's next. Readiness is rarely loud. It doesn't announce itself with confidence or certainty. It shows up as subtle shifts in how you think, choose, and respond. You pause before reacting. You consider consequences instead of chasing relief. You feel less urgency to prove yourself and more commitment to protecting your energy. These changes signal maturity. Readiness isn't about having everything figured out. It's about being grounded enough to handle what you don't. You're learning how to hold responsibility without resentment, opportunity without ego, pressure without panic. You're no longer asking only for change. You're becoming capable of sustaining it. What once overwhelmed you now feels manageable. What once intimidated you now feels challenging but possible. That's readiness forming quietly. Readiness also shows up as discernment. You don't chase everything that looks good. You don't say yes just to feel chosen. You recognize timing. You recognize alignment. You recognize when waiting is wiser than forcing. You understand that preparation isn't delay. It's investment. You're building internal structure so external success doesn't collapse you. You're learning how to stay consistent without constant motivation. You're becoming someone who can lead themselves before leading anything else. That self-leadership is what qualifies you for what's next. This chapter will not define your ending. Chapters are meant to be read, learned from, and then turned. They explain context, not conclusions. What you've endured informs your story, but it doesn't confine it. Pain can shape perspective without shaping destiny. Struggle can influence wisdom without determining outcome. This chapter gave you insight, depth, resilience, awareness. It taught you what you will no longer tolerate and what you're willing to fight for. It clarified values, it refined vision, it strengthened resolve, but it does not get the authority to write your future. Endings are not written by seasons, they're written by choices. What you choose to carry forward matters more than what happened behind you. You don't take the hardship with you as a burden. You take the lessons as tools. You don't move forward defined by what hurt you. You move forward informed by it. This chapter becomes reference, not identity. A point of comparison that highlights growth, not limitation. Your ending is being shaped by who you're becoming now, not by what you survived then. What you've heard today isn't just motivation. It's a reframe of your entire life experience. Every keynote connects to a single truth. Nothing you've been through has been wasted. Pressure wasn't sent to break you. It was sent to build you. Delays weren't designed to deny you. They were shaping endurance so you could sustain what's coming. Closed doors weren't rejection. They were protection from versions of life that would have shrunk you. Growth wasn't accidental. It was evidence that the chapter is ending. Transformation happened internally long before circumstances could shift externally. Faith was forged, not borrowed. Readiness was built quietly. And the chapter you're in right now, no matter how heavy it feels, does not get to define how your story ends. You are still here because you were meant to carry something forward. You're not behind, you're not forgotten. You're not late. You are being shaped with precision. Every layer added through hardship expanded your capacity. Every season of waiting strengthened your foundation. What once overwhelmed you no longer controls you. What once shook you no longer owns you. You are becoming the kind of person who can hold weight, responsibility, purpose, and opportunity without collapsing under it. This isn't about surviving anymore. It's about alignment. And alignment always precedes elevation. This chapter will not define your ending if this message spoke to you. Subscribe to Tony Robbins Track for daily reminders of who you're becoming. Drop a comment below with one word that describes what this season has taught you. And remember, don't rush the page turn. You're closer than you think.